This is a throughway.
Just keep walking. Keep walking. I think you can go up here to the left.
Are you looking for the tour?
Yes. Oh, good, good.
Oh, right here.
My first time trying to find the place was a real challenge.
Yeah.
You've been here before then?
Yeah. I went on the Srebrenica tour.
Oh, okay.
It was worth it.
Where are you
All
from?
day. In upstate New York
Oh,
is
okay.
where I live.
Oh, that's a beautiful
Nice.
area.
The idea was to chop city in half, to connect Grbavica area, which is on our left, which was only the residential area which was under control of Serbs, to connect it with this facility and to the hill on our right side. Fortunately, ordinary people and criminals fought them back and they didn't succeed. This was sniper rally. It was very dangerous to walk and to drive here. Mostly common people didn't use this road at all. We used small roads on the other side. We were idealists in Sarajevo. You must realize Sarajevo is a mixed city. We are proud that we have most mixed marriages in Yugoslavia, mixed marriages between more ethnicities or religions. So that's the spirit of Sarajevo. Two student girls were shot on the bridge, Olga and Suada, Croatian and Bosnian girl. And those are symbolically two first victims of Sarajevo siege. When UN came here, we were so happy. We believe that UN is something. Nowadays we know that UN is just a flag and a tag. When he built the tunnel, prices got down in Sarajevo. People before would trade cars for food because you didn't need the car when you don't have petrol or diesel to use it. But more, the tunnel meant even more because artists, sportsmen went to Europe through this dangerous road. And when you have your flag on some kind of competition, you exist as a country. This is the mark which remains after a grenade explodes. You have multiple models of grenades, multiple, how to say, calibers and everything else.
These are the roses?
Yes, these are the roses. Wherever a large massacre happened, citizens of Sarajevo started painting these marks red to remember the sites where our neighbors were killed. And we call it Sarajevo roses. You can see what shrapnel does to the concrete block. You can imagine what it does to human flesh. It just rips it apart. My father was wounded in November of 1992. His grenade exploded a few meters from him, but he was fortunate. A grenade exploded not on the concrete, but in the soil. So it absorbed pretty much of impact, and his leg was absolutely chopped from one side. And he was saved because he had, you know, the military, the army, I would say these pantaloons. They are pretty deep, and he had the belt, a knife, and ammunition. Many of shrapnel struck that side, and his torso was saved. So he survived because of this metal on him.
Two adults.
We are standing right here on the beginning of this light, and tunnel was going all the way under the airport to this side, to the besieged city. Before the tunnel was built, people were running over this airport. Many of them were ordered to run to get ammunition and food from one side to the other. Fog, we have lots of fog here. Now it's smog, unfortunately. Fog was blessing and night was blessing. It is estimated that 120 people were killed in trying to run over the airport because Serbs are from the both sides of the airport. We were very much furious because UN would take lights and light up the airport over the night. Sometimes those lights were the reason why people were shot by this. This is the house where we are standing. Luckily, this guy who built this house before the war invested lots of money in the basement because it was too expensive. It was very expensive to build it because of underground waters. Thanks to his idea to make a basement, we had entrance to the tunnel. In 1993, it was a top secret when the tunnel we started building the tunnel. I went through the tunnel when I was 8 years old. It was almost less muddy and watery because I had to go to the funeral on this side. I remember I was 9 at the time. I was pretty shorter, but I remember that by here was touching at one point and I had hair back then. And I tried to walk on these rail tracks because it was less muddy. And I remember at one point, especially the drops were non-stop on your head. And I remember at one point my leg slipped from these tracks and started sinking into mud like to here.
Wow.
And I remember the smell of men. We smell very bad when we don't take a bath.
So were you, and when you were 8 years old, were you, what year was that?
1994.
Oh, so it was
Late
during
1994,
oh, okay.
August, yes. Still the water, yes.
Yes.
Everything was precious.
Yes.
At the beginning, even fruit. It was very hard to get tomato or pickle or everything else. Later on, we organized ourselves in 93, 94, and we started planting in parks.
So this is the actual tunnel now, huh?
This is the actual tunnel.
I'm short and this is still...
April, turn around and stand up.
I can't. Ow! I can't.
It's tiny, huh?
Yeah. I wonder how many sections were this low.
Yeah, I think he said pretty much all of it.
The whole thing.
Yeah, well, that was all hand kind of built.
What I'm finding most interesting is his own accounts.
Yes, his own
Memories
of the war.
And thanks to the Sarajevo Film Festival, which is today the most important regional festival in this part of Europe. And it started its life in 1995, its tradition. So
Yeah.
what the Serbs achieved, they tried to demolish us, they achieved something opposite. The site in the Olympic Village where a large massacre of children, 22 children were killed on the soccer or football. Their self-organized tournament.
Were they taking out the kids on purpose? I mean, you keep saying
on purpose, yeah.
really
For really, yeah. But that's the case. Yes, that
to
is.
make a statement.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's to demolish you, to kill more of you.
Right.
That's the logic of ethnical cleansing. Cigarettes. Why cigarettes? Currencies we could use in a war were Deutschmarks, German marks, and dollars. But few people had money at all. And cigarettes were currency. Soldiers would get salary in cigarettes. You could buy, everything for cigarettes. And why cigarettes are wrapped in this book paper? Because at one point our tobacco factory ran out of paper, and they started using books to wrap cigarettes. So back then, cigarettes weren't killing you; they meant life and educating you. So humanitarian aid. First few months we got the best humanitarian aid ever. Because Americans were getting rid of their old supplies. Sometimes they were crackers from Vietnam War, but they were great. We were introduced peanut butter. We didn't know what peanut butter was. Now you can buy it in Sarajevo. Took out the engine from that Polish Fiat. They took out 0.9 liter petrol engine and connected it to the electrical generator to make electricity. So this is a homemade generator, petrol run. My mother's neighbor who lived here, he's an car electrician. He made a large wheel on a very small stream and connected it to the car generator. It had enough electricity to power the television. So you start building yourself a thing when you need it. Please watch this. It is very easy to remember. Scream for Me Sarajevo documentary is called. Frontman of Iron Maiden came with his own group on his own responsibility through a tunnel and made a concert in besieged city under grenades.
Wow.
And there were no, marketing, no commercial.
Right.
It was spread from mouth to mouth. It was kept secret for Serbs not to know the exact location. So he's a great guy.
It was pretty jaw-dropping, the scale of the war and the inability of the UN to do anything about it.
We just done a load of touring. We've done America, we've done Europe. And so another gig, no big surprise, except of course he said it's in Sarajevo. I was like, hang on, there's a war in Sarajevo? You see that brown line just below the top of the hill? That's the Serbian front line. They're watching us now like we're watching them, but they're watching through sniper sights.
It left an impression on me that's going to stay with me for my whole life.
This is a concert that nobody ever believed would ever happen.
Documentary with more called The Death of Yugoslavia. The best because it was filmed just on the end of the war. And the war criminals don't realize that they incriminate themselves. British did a great job. If they would film it just 6 months later, they wouldn't do the same job. And there is also BBC's documentary about saving the books from Gazi Husrev Bey's Medresa's library. The story is when Serbs ruined the National Library in Olympic Hall. Bosnian people realized that the other library is in the Medresa, the Islamic school, one of the oldest high schools in Europe that works, has very valuable documents, artifacts, and they took it many times, changed position secret. And the interesting thing in that documentary, you will see BBC, filmed by BBC, they used the banana boxes. And they were cursed from the citizens of Sarajevo. You clerics have bananas to eat, we don't have normal food. And they were carrying books.
Where do you see the future of Bosnia?
Well, it all depends what will go on in Europe. As we can see in Poland, in Hungary, even in Germany, you have right-wing parties rising up again with the rhetorics, nationalistic rhetorics, such as Nazi Germany, you know. It all depends how stable Europe is. Stability in Europe will reflect in Bosnia, and not just in Bosnia, in ex-Yugoslavia. Even in Serbia, you will have problems in Kosovo. Mm-hmm. It can explode very soon if Europe destabilizes, and it all will depend how strong United States will be, and how will be interested in this area.
So you actually think it's better for the United States to stay involved? So a lot of times Americans feel like we're in too much involved with other countries.
Well, in Bosnian case, they will always be involved in the Balkans because of the Russia. You know, I will ask you as American, or would you like Russians to come to the Mediterranean Sea?
Absolutely.
It wouldn't be a wise thing, not just for Bosnian people.
Sure.
I think it wouldn't be wise for Serbs, and I don't think it would be wise for the world at the time. We are very proud that we are in Sarajevo in possession of Sarajevo's Haggadah, we call it. Haggadah is an illustrated religious book, came from Spain. It is the oldest Haggadah from 13th century, I think. What is also interesting, the story about Haggadah, it all survived 2 wars. In the Second World War, as you know, all German soldiers were collecting everything that was valuable in Europe. And the Germans also came for Haggadah. Dervish Torkut, who was a custos in the museum, said to the German officer when he was asked to give Haggadah away, he said to him that some other officer came before him and took Haggadah. After the war, he brought it back to the museum. In this war, as I said, heroes were ordinary people, young people, and criminals. Criminals got into the museum to rob things, and they didn't know how Haggadah was valuable. When official police came into the museum, they found Haggadah on the floor, and it survived a second time, and it was kept in the safe deposit box in the bank until the war ended. This was my street here, but luckily I wasn't living in this building, but on the building which is opposite, which is how to say 90 degrees, not parallel to the battle. This, you see the city hall down there, the yellow building, was targeted from the positions on this hill, on this mountain, when it was ruined. And when firefighters came to extinguish fire in the library, they were under attack because the firefighters tried to pump out the water from the river, and they didn't succeed.
We're here on the 1984 Olympic bobsled in Sarajevo, Bosnia. What's left of it. The war has obviously ravished the bobsled run. And it's still, since it's March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, there's still a little bit of ice and snow here. And look, April's gonna bust her butt.
Oh, stop.